Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everybody, my name is James Davenport. Hello and welcome to the webinar Ready, Set, Go, a planning approach to protect lives and property from wildfire. My name is James Davenport, Program Manager for the National Association of Counties. The webinar today is conducted through the NACO project, Building County Capacity to Reduce Wildfire Risk in the Wildland-Urban Interface, which was kicked off in 2008. I'm pleased that you selected this webinar today and look forward to the insight and information from our presenters, as well as your comments, questions, and concerns. I hope that you find this webinar and webinars overall a helpful tool in the exchange of information. With counties facing major budget challenges, NACO is actively used in webinars to provide information and opportunity for open discussion. This is my contact information. I want to acknowledge Cindy Wasser of NACO staff, who is working with me on the webinar in the NACO Wildfire Risk Project, which I'll talk about in a minute. As we begin our webinar, we have a few quick housekeeping items to cover. The question and chat box are on the right-hand side of the webinar window. This box will collapse so that you can better view the presentation. To unhide the box, click the arrows on the top of the panel. If you are having technical difficulties at any point during the webinar, please send a chat message which will go to the webinar organizers, and we will write to you privately to resolve the issue. This webinar will be recorded and stored for future viewing. To access NACO's recorded webinar collection, please visit www.naco.org/webinars after today's program. We also want to reiterate that completing the webinar evaluation is very important to us. Similar to our face-to-face forums and workshops, evaluations are an essential tool for NACO to access the webinars and look for ways to revise them based on member needs. We will hold questions until the end of the webinar, where you can type in your question at any time. The project in the webinar itself is supported through the U.S. Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management. The session is also co-sponsored by the NACO Wildfire Advisory Group, a group composed of county elected officials, planners, emergency managers, and fire professionals, as well as representatives from state and federal agencies and key stakeholder groups, to oversee activities of the project and review publications produced through this project. But the overall goal is to provide technical expertise and guidance to staff, as we progress through the project period. One of the products produced through the project is the NACO Wildfire Information Clearinghouse, launched in June of 2009. In addition, I want to announce the upcoming release of the publication Planning Fire Resilient Communities in the Wildland-Urban Interface, with a particular focus on the audience of county elected officials, planners, and emergency managers. This guide describes tools and strategies a county or community can use to reduce the vulnerability of its residents to wildfire through developing and implementing effective local land use policies and building and development codes. If you would like a copy of the guide, please contact me or Cindy. Electronic copies are available on the Wildfire Clearinghouse at www.naco.org/wildfire. Before we begin, we will launch our first polling question, really to get a sense of how many people are actually participating in the webinar. So how many people are participating in this webinar from your computer? 1, 2, 3, or more? Okay. Okay, looks like most of just one in each. But looks like we've got a pretty good crowd today, so that's good. Many of us know that urban sprawl and rural appeal have brought more residents into the wildland-urban interface. That means more homes, properties, and lives are at risk from wildfire. County and community decision makers, planners, and fire professionals take wildfire and the safety of their constituents very seriously. The Ready, Set, Go process is a tool for homeowners to better protect their homes during a wildfire event. The issue is that during a major wildfire, there will simply be not enough firefighters to defend every home. So the idea is homeowners with the Ready, Set, Go program become a part of the solution rather than part of the problem. This is not a tool just for homes in the WUI or the Wildland-Urban Interface, but also if a resident lives within 1 mile of a natural area called the Ember Zone. Homes in the Ember Zone are at risk from wind-driven embers from a wildfire. Recent wildfires have resulted in entire neighborhoods being destroyed by fires started by embers, not the wildfire itself. So in this webinar, you will hear from one of the developers of the Ready, Set, Go program and how he implemented the process for his county to help his own residents better prepare for wildfire. You'll also hear from representatives from counties that are participating in the beta testing of the Ready, Set, Go process. So first we'll hear from Bob Roper of Ventura County, California. Bob Roper is the fire chief of the Ventura County Fire Department and the co-chair of the International Association of Fire Chiefs Wildland Fire Policy Committee. Bob will provide an overview of the Ready, Set, Go program, which he helped develop on behalf of the International Association of Fire Chiefs, which officially released a prototype of the program in March of this year. In addition, Mr. Roper will describe how the Ready, Set, Go program has worked in Ventura County in helping homeowners prepare for wildfire. But before we move to Bob's presentation, I want to ask another polling question. Does your county or community have a public outreach program for homeowners to assist them in being better prepared for wildfire and being able to evacuate at a reasonable time? Yes, no, in development, or don't know? Okay. Looks like the majority have one in place. That's good. Okay. All right. Very good. Well, thanks for responding. So now I'll switch it over to Bob.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. We'll get everything started here. James, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Well, welcome. What I want to do is give you a background of what Ready, Set, Go is, basically how it got here, and where we're going to be taking it into the future. I am the fire chief of the Ventura County Fire Department. For those of you who don't know, we're located in Southern California. Just north, we border Los Angeles County. So we're one of the core counties or locations that have the strong Santa Ana winds that happen during the summer into the fall with high temperatures and low humidity. So we usually are hosting many of these wildland fires. What Ready, Set, Go is, it's a action plan to take a lot of the preparations that a lot of departments have or communities have, from building codes to actually actions that homeowners take, and turn it into a step-by-step process so that people know their situation, where they live, what to do during an evacuation, and how to survive. So Ready is how to prepare your home. Set stands for situational awareness. And Go is the big question is what's the definition of go? When do you go? Basically, we're telling people, go now, go as directed, and you go to be able to survive the fire. Why is Ready, Set, Go needed? It's really need to improve the personal responsibility of people living in the wild and urban interface. What we're finding is more and more people are moving into these areas from urban environments, not knowing exactly the situation that they're getting themselves into. They don't understand the importance of maintenance of their homes, the importance of providing defensible space. They don't understand the response of emergency operations. And so what we have to do is bring them into part of the solution. We're also finding that 100-year fires are happening every year, every 5 years now, whether that's from climate change. We can't really tell you, but it is happening more often. What we need to do is really bring up that awareness of people on what happens when a wildfire hits their neighborhoods. We're also looking at the fire suppression costs constantly increase. This is the issue about how much does it cost to put out a wildland fire. That really pales in comparison to what we're now calling the true cost of a wildland fire when you look at the secondary economic interest, what happens to the environment, transportation corridors, loss of work, and then, like we said, secondary loss of income to a lot of people. We're also seeing that the public expectations in our locations don't match what the fire agencies can provide. This means that most people think that they'll have a fire truck at every house when a wildland fire happens. In reality, there's no way we can do that because of the vast number of people living in these areas. Most homes that we have found is, whether it's in the United States, Australia, or other parts of the world, most of the homes that are lost are being lost during the initial attack during the first 6 hours of a wildland fire, as emergency responders are gearing up, getting resources to be staged in an area. That's when the losses are happening. We're also finding that new codes, if adopted in an area, work great, but the largest percentage of the homes that are out there in the WUI environment are the existing homes that aren't built to the modern building standards, that may not be maintained, that may have issues with ornamental vegetation. There's also the misnomer about people you would see on TV, the flaming front of a wildland fire that everybody gets glued to. It's kind of like sitting around the campfire watching, being mesmerized by the flames. That isn't really what's happening to the homes that are being lost in these communities. It's being lost due to the ember environment, that embers are dropping in front of the actual flames getting there. And our problem as emergency managers is we may evacuate these areas. People are no longer there, and these embers now have a receptive fuel bed around the homes and so forth. And so there's nobody there to watch when these fires may manifest themselves after the fire resources kind of leapfrog and leave the area. And we've already talked about the transitionary population in these areas. The goals is to improve firefighter safety and the public safety and preserve property. Well, there's a new term that's growing in the communities called fire adaptive communities we'll talk about a little later. But basically these are communities where, if properly prepared, could survive a wildland fire even if there's no fire resources there. Again, we need to bring more people into the responsibility of the area they live. We also need to create a common media message. We find that in different parts of the country, there may be a media market that covers 6 counties, and what one fire department does influences the actions of the others because the public doesn't recognize whether they have a red fire truck, yellow, white, or what terminology you're using. So we need to create that common media message. And really, as an industry, what we want to do is promote an early evacuation, but also be prepared for an early return as a baseline. So let's go on to how do we present this. The first step is adopt a strategy to create these fire adaptive communities. What it looks like is really a ladder, and there's a series of processes that each community has to go through, from creating defensible space, have modern building codes, a variety of community wildfire protection plan, prevention activities, public education, and so forth. Like we said, for a community to be able to stand by itself without any fire resources would be the ultimate vision. Currently in the United States, there's a process going on the right of your screen. It's called a cohesive strategy. As this process is being done, and it will be unveiled nationally in the United States in November of 2010, it's going to be broken up into 3 core areas: the fire adaptive communities, the response to fires, and the landscape restoration. Landscape restoration actually stands for treating those fuel conditions that are out in our community, whether they're dead and decadent trees or brush. We have to be able to treat and manage those fuels. The second step is identifying the risk factors. You could ask the question, your community is a candidate